because you're not having to like reread something because your brain wandered while you were reading it, or get distracted and it makes you less. So you'll be less distractible and therefore more efficient. And probably safer in a lot of the things you do like driving, where you're going to be using different networks. You'll be less overwhelmed. That's like what I look for to hear when I recommend meditation. So, are you feeling less stressed and overwhelmed? Less irritable, emotionally overreactive, more patient intolerance, more frustration, less stimulation seeking and restless, and as a result, less secondary anxiety and depression. What that means, secondary means that you have depression and anxiety because you were stressed about managing untreated ADD. So managing untreated ADD is very stressful, and that can lead to depression and feeling helplessness. So, but once you treat the ADD, then those tend to begin. And then as a result of all that, you get more enhanced self-esteem and confidence and better communication skills. So it's really important to get the medication and to know how to take the medication and to make sure that it's being monitored properly for side effects or you need a higher dose. I do a lot of work with coordinating care with physicians to get the right plans. And a lot of times they under-medicate because obviously you don't want to over-medicate, but it's also frustrating being given a dose that doesn't have much efficacy for you. So it's important to really titrate it up to clinically effective level. And it may vary in its efficacy over the cycle. So if your PMS period of time in hormonally, you may have more symptoms of ADHD, and medicine may feel like it's not working. And some people may need to take a little bit more of that. So medication is one way to treat the brain. Another is through self-care. And too many women in particular put themselves last, and they are so focused on taking care of their kids, taking care of their spouse, taking care of their job, household, that they don't often make time to take care of themselves. So this is a really important message that I try to help women understand, that your self-care is a primary importance. It's kind of like in the airplanes, they say, put your mask on before you put your child's on. It's the same thing. You got to take care of you before you can switch yourself to take care of anyone else, or you're going to get depleted and burnt out. And too many people will self-stimulate with devices because it feels good to your brain, but it's also sucking away time from sleep and other important self-care time that you need. So it's important to prioritize the self-care over that kind of behavior. And it's important to say no to taking on too much. So many people with ADHD, we have fun doing the stuff. It's like, oh, that sounds cool. Let me do that. And let me join this committee and join that book club and do this. But then you realize that you don't have time then to get enough sleep or to take care of you or your other responsibilities. So assessing how much you're taking on is important as well. Making planning time for self-care first. And then see if you have enough time to sleep. So these are the key things. They sound simple, but they're absolutely foundational in your self-care. If you don't get enough sleep, exercise, you don't eat right, if you don't do some of these things, you're going to be much more scattered and much more overwhelmed and much more feeling dysfunctional than if you honor your body and brain's need to really take care of yourself. So starting with sleep, that's the number one pillar of self, of health and well-being, mentally, physically, emotionally. What people don't understand is that sleep is when your body's immune system actually works. And with all of these immune, things going on, right? We have RSV and we have monkeypox and we have COVID and we have the flu going around. If you're depleting yourself by not getting enough sleep, your immune system is going to be less effective at keeping you safe and healthy. So it also affects cognitive functioning. So you're going to make your ADD worse, your memory worse, your focus worse, and your health worse. So all of those things are affected by lack of sleep. And so many people, I would say probably 80% of people with ADHD have sleep issues. They have a racing mind at night, they can't fall asleep easily, or they get woken up because they're worried about things, and or they basically burn the candle at both ends and don't go to bed early enough or have to get up early for work or get your kid to school or something. So getting enough sleep is a huge issue. So we want to make sure to kind of make that sort of, I try to get people to put that on your calendar first. Like, I'm going to sleep, I'm making this up, from 11 to 7. And so nothing should get in the way of that. And nothing is worth staying up past 11 unless it's a real emergency, or past 12 if you go 12 to 8. But you need like an 8-hour, 7 to 8 hour block of time that's just guaranteed what you're going to commit to yourself. And everything else you kind of schedule around it rather than vice versa. And then you got to keep making it a priority and schedule your life around it. And some people will need ways to help them fall asleep on time. You want to take away devices from your faces about half an hour to an hour before bedtime. Maybe read from a real printed book from the screen. Once you get in bed and are all ready, take some melatonin. Some people find that helpful. Doing a sleep meditation can be helpful. Or listening to nature sounds, or sometimes nature, or like a little voice machine, something like that. And you also want to try to get out in nature. There's actually research that suggests that the more nature you have exposure to, the fewer symptoms you have. So kind of building some green breaks would be great. Getting out for lunch, for example, for a 15-minute walk instead of sitting to death. And then we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition, because too often when you're rushed and you have too much on your plate and you're managing lots of kids and activities, you don't take care of yourself as far as eating health. And you just grab something that's quick without thinking about the nutritional value of it. So it's important to think about what you're eating and make something that's grabbable if you are in a hurry, but it can be something healthy rather than junk. And what we eat directly affects our neurotransmitter levels. So it's going to affect how your brain works and how your moods are. So it's really important for your kids as well, for those of you with children, to think about what you're feeding them for breakfast, for example. If you're feeding them too much sugar and refined carbs, then they're going to get a spike of blood sugar. They might get a little more focused during that brief period of time, and then they're going to get a crash as the sugar levels drop. And then they're going to be foggy-brained and more scattered. And so you want protein and fiber to kind of stabilize the blood sugar and your brain in good place. So again, higher protein, lower carbohydrate. You really want to try to have some protein at all meals. It doesn't have to be meat. It can be eggs or yogurt or cheese or whatever the diet allows. And because protein is really the amino acid building block for neurotransmitters in the brain. So it's an important thing to have enough of in your diet. And if you have good kinds of carbohydrates, so this is like the non-sugary, fibery things, like vegetables or like fruits, apples, not the real sugary fruits, but those are kind of healthy carbohydrates. And you want to pair that with protein. So, chicken, turkey, beef, fish, cottage cheese, string cheese, milk, yogurt, eggs, nut butters, legumes, lentils, quinoa. All those things are kind of healthy sources of protein. So you want to combine that with a more complex carb rather than a refined one. So in other words, no sugary cereals and Captain Crunch for breakfast, but they're better off with eggs or a yogurt or oatmeal with nuts and a fruit on it, with berries, or a breakfast sandwich even. Or my kids used to eat chicken nuggets when they were little for breakfast. At least I gave them those. And then, another issue with eating is that a number of people, men and women, will eat for stimulation. It's like a way to get dopamine pop, because your brain's looking for dopamine. So food will do that. And sometimes people will eat out of boredom. Their mouth's bored and they just kind of want something to entertain them, if you will. And others find it comforting to eat when they're stressed. So that can exacerbate, weight gain and, result in overeating. So taking the medication will definitely help that kind of. But it's also helpful to keep and have some, like my husband had this habit, and so he now prepares individual serving bags of his nut trail mix, so he just have a single serving bag, take that down to his office rather than a big bag that you then keep taking a handful of and you don't realize how much you're eating. Omega-3 fatty acids is another thing that can be useful to the brain. It's really important for brain structure and function, and a lot of people with ADHD don't tend to have enough of it in their diet and in their brains. It also improves their cardiovascular health. So the way we eat has changed historically as well from modern times to previously, and we eat so much corn and soy products now rather than grass-fed products, so we don't get enough of the vitamin of the omega-3. Rather, we get more omega-6. So to increase the omega-3, we really want to think about these foods that have that naturally in it, as well as possibly supplements. And it can make a difference in your ADHD. And then exercise is another really good one, because exercise actually changes the brain progressively and cumulatively, as well as affecting neurotransmitter levels temporarily. But it creates new receptors and new pathways. So it's, as John Grady said, the most powerful, single most powerful tool you have to optimize your brain function. And people forget this, and they don't make time for exercise, especially if you got a busy life. So this is, again, part of self-care, and it's important to try to schedule in some exercise every day, even if it's 15, 20 minutes, and not saying an hour at the gym. But you can go for a fast walk at lunchtime for 20 minutes, and that counts. Or you can even dance to your favorite music, and that counts. And they've even shown how it has direct impact on your cognitive functioning, improves performance, and on tests, and your cognitive flexibility and your executive function. So it's a really important part of treating ADHD for kids, adults, everyone. So a lot of this stuff does apply to non-women as well, to everyone. So take that home to your husband and your kids if they know ADHD. And then with exercise, there is a connection between movement and attention. So they're overlapping pathways. And so it's sometimes even more helpful if you have a structured exercise. Like if you get your kids in something even that have like routines to learn, that can even enhance their attention networks by learning these routines. So those are just some examples of sports that have that. And it also helps them with their emotional reactivity, adults and kids alike. It will help your emotional regulation through exercise. So the recommended exercise is 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week, but that can translate into 20 minutes, 6 or 7 times. So it doesn't have to be long. So often getting yourself to exercise can be challenging. So there's some strategies to kind of have a buddy, class, or to that structure, and accountability to get yourself there. And make it fun. Do things with other people. Sometimes that's normal. All right, and then I talk a little bit about the benefits of meditation for your brain, and this applies to kids and guys as well as women. So there have been a lot of research on this, and it's demonstrated the health-related and brain-related benefits of meditation, physiologically and cognitively. So there are, again, changes to the network. So both exercise and meditation make permanent cumulative changes to the brain. Medication is temporary, like my glasses. Once I take them off, my eyesight's the same. When the medicine wears off at the end of the day, your brain is not improved. So these are ways that you can actually improve your brain. So they're important to do both. So there are greater states of mental integration when you meditate. Your cortisol and stress levels go down. It improves self-regulation, working memory, and sustained attention. And I will send slides to anybody that would like them. They're also available online already for free at chad.org under the webinars. It actually benefits your health down to the cellular level. It's that powerful. It will help your sleep, your immune system, and it helps you to be more positive. Here's a sort of seminal study from 2008, which is a while now, but when it came out, it was quite a landmark study. It was very encouraging for people with ADHD who did, it was, I think, 20 minutes a day meditation, and they found significant changes in a lot of these variables just based on that. So this is a little bit about what is mindfulness meditation. So I just wanted to kind of introduce you to it, for those of you that may not be familiar. But it's basically becoming intentionally receptive moment by moment to our experience without judgment. So it's non-judgmental attention to anything you're experiencing in that moment. So it's your breath, or sounds in the room, or temperature of the space, or if you're outside, the breeze going by you. So it's sort of it's the repetitive act of directing your attention to only one thing in this one moment, rather than kind of getting caught up in thoughts that are going on in your brain. And it's a way to mentally train your attention so that you are more mindful and more likely to know where you put your phone or some item that you tend to absentmindedly place somewhere without really noticing because you're not mindful. So this is teaching you to be more aware moment by moment of what you're doing. So it's building these pathways, and it's like, think of it like exercising a muscle will get stronger. So the more you practice mindfulness, the more likely you are to be mindfully present when you do these things and less absent-minded. So also, it's easier for you to make good choices in your life and use what we call wise minds rather than a more impulsive sort of react. And they get better at enduring pain and solving problems and just being happier with life and with themselves when you practice this for a while. And you can do it as simply as a 10-minute meditation app. So there are plenty of apps on your phone, and some will remind you to do it every day. Headspace is one of those. Some people may have heard of that one, or there's one called Calm. That was a really good one, and they both have sleep meditations, and that's a specific meditation to help your brain go to sleep. So if it does struggle with sleep, that can be useful as well. But the kind of meditation I'm talking about to train your brain is not intended to be relaxation and put you to sleep. It's intended to enhance that network in your brain of attending to the present moment and building that muscle, if you will. So you can do it in all different forms. There's TM, there's template of prayer, mindfulness. There are classes and workshops all over the place you can go to. There are ones that are free, and I can hook you up with some if you're interested. As I mentioned, there are apps as well. And you can also, if you can't sit still, you can also do walking meditation. You can also practice mindfulness, even just eating or being in the shower. It's just a different way of doing this. Eat mindfully. You're actually looking at your food before you shovel it in your mouth. You're noticing it, you're smelling it, you're putting it in your mouth, and you're slowly chewing it and noticing the flavors and the textures and the experience of the food before you swallow it. Not just like stuffing it and talking to somebody or watching TV and not even thinking about what you're eating and not slowing it down. So it's about slowing it down, but just more being aware. Like if you're in the shower, you could just be thinking about what you're going to do that day or what you're going to wear that day, or you can notice the steam in the shower and the lather and the smell of the shampoo and, be present with it. So that's ways to practice it as well. Or when you're driving, you can drive mindfully by noticing everything on the road that you can see. Is there a kid over here walking a dog? Is there someone playing basketball at the end of their driveway as you're driving by? Is there a stop sign coming up that you need to be aware of? Just really noticing everything in the environment rather than focusing on listening to a talk radio show or something else or thinking in your mind about something else. So not hard to read all of those are just some of the benefits of meditation put on one slide. So it actually reduces aging. It adds more hours to your day because you tend to be more efficient and calmer, and helps you appreciate life more, and helps you feel more connected, makes you and those around you happier and functioning brain and sleep better. So lots of good benefits. And a lot of people with ADHD will tell me, I can't meditate. My brain is a monkey brain. Yeah, welcome to the club. We all have monkey brains. It doesn't mean you can't learn how to meditate. It's just, you learn, when you practice it, your mind will wander less and less. And each time it wanders, I want you to see it as an opportunity to bring it back to the point of focus. So if the breath is your point of focus, to bring it back to the breath. Or to bring it back to an object if you have left your eyes open and looking down at an object to meditate on that. So think of it as an opportunity to practice bringing it back to the object of attention each time your mind wanders. So it's actually getting more practice if your mind wanders. Not see it as I can't do this. Other practices can be helpful too, like yoga, tai chi, qigong. They all calm and center the mind and help you ground into your body. So when you get more grounded in your body, you're less scattered in your mind. And I can tell you personally, it's made such a difference in my life. I am so much less kind of overly active and a little more less ADD when I'm in my body and when I'm more active. So I've learned over the last 15 years now to really ground myself to the point where it's completely changed how my brain works. So it's pretty powerful. And you don't even realize it. It just seems like, oh yeah, do yoga, do Tai Chi, but you'd be surprised how much it helps your body and brain. Then there's breath work that can be really helpful for stress, for anxiety, to calm you. And when you're calm, when you're anxious, your brain is flooded and you can't think straight. So it takes your brain offline even more. And it's already somewhat offline if you have untreated ADHD. So anxiety then just really takes your executive function offline. When you're flooded with anxiety, you can't think straight. You can't make good decisions. You can't problem solve. So you want to find ways to kind of calm that. And breath work is one of those. And again, it's shifting attention to the body and out of the head as ways to get grounded in your body instead of caught up in all of the monkey mind that goes on up there. That living up there is not a healthy way to live. You want to kind of keep anchoring down to body. I like to say metaphorically, take the elevator down and focus on how your gut feels, how your heart feels. Notice your breathing. Make decisions from your gut rather than your head sometimes. Because we overthink things a lot and we second guess us. And then we're not in alignment with what feels right to us. And our gut actually picks up the gut instinct, right? You pick up on things in a more instinctive way with your gut anyway. So sometimes the head is overrated because of it. There's so much self-doubt and so much second guessing that happens up there. Sometimes we have a wiser gut instinct than we do our wrong mind. Questions about that so far? Thoughts, anything to share? Strategies that work for you? And you can try meditation. And have you noticed the benefit of exercise for ADHD? Have you tried, enhancing your sleep so that mind works better? Yeah.
You're talking about the good food and fresh food. I heard about the citrus foods, blog that implications on orange.
Right. So yes, if you're taking amphetamine salts, so that's Adderall, Vyvanse, Dexamine, then the orange juice acidifies your urine, and then you end up urinating out the medication to some degree. That's what it is. But it's only a there's comments or thoughts or things that have worked for you along these lines. Yeah.
Let me just say, I learned a lot, practiced a lot of mindfulness the past year, and not through CHAD, but through some other organization that I was working with. They were asking me to, eat mindfully. And I was trying to get my family to do that. And I was just like, oh, it's so nice because it's like when you're doing something like that, you're eating slower, your family's staying at the table and you get to talk and it feels like you enjoy your food more. Now, I do a lot of driving and I've never thought about mindful driving. I didn't know that existed, but, and I've also done meditation in the past. And that's so calming to your brain. I love that. And now that you brought that up tonight, I'm going to have to start that again. So I loved it.
And the apps are a really convenient way. We always have our phone in our hand and our pocket. Use them for meditation and breathing and these kinds of things and mindfulness. Yeah.
If you like being outside as I do, there is a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And that one's really easy to practice while you're out in the park or walking around the neighborhood, to just be there and listening to what's going on around you now. It's less inward focused and more outward focused, but I found it a lot easier to start than meditation. Yeah. Yes.
The separation of mind and body is really more of a Western concept because in most Eastern religions and other places we think of the body is the mind because all of your nervous system, all your senses come through, there's the messages coming in and then there's the messages going back out.
That's right.
To order things. So your body is the mind. It's just that we get so caught up in fears, back up here, that we don't always get anchored.
Absolutely.
We don't do enough movement. We don't do things to keep innovation.
That's right.
So it's so helps. And a lot of the kids, I taught this thing called brain gym to kids, and a lot of what it does is it anchors learning and movement, and that's a great way to learn. You know, it's some of us that are fidgety or, or you know, just some kids learn. Also, there are things that you can do to connect the two sides of the brain.
That's right.
Because a lot of times they're developmental milestones that kids haven't hit when they're younger, and a lot of times it's called occupational therapists will work with kids to cross the midline. That's how you work. You cross the midline, so there's you know, so there are all these like hookups that you do and things that you do to try to make the body more completely efficient, you know, just efficient.
It's great. Anything else? All right, now I'm going to share some cognitive behavioral strategies that might be helpful. So as I mentioned before, reframing it is like really important so that you see your life, you know, if you've got diagnosed later in life, you look back at your life and you recognize that, you know, you don't have a deficiency, you just have a different, wider brain. And, or your kids, whoever, you know, when you're feeling wrong with ADHD, and really move from self-blame to self-understanding. Unfortunately, this brain doesn't come with a user's manual, so they have to help you create one so that you understand why your brain struggles with certain things and what you can do to help. So it's also important to identify yourself by your strength and not really, so many people come and say, I'm scattered, I'm forgetful, I'm lazy, I'm disorganized. That's not who you are. Those are some areas you struggle with, but you're creative, you're smart, you know, you're hardworking, you're conscientious, you're not those things. You are your strengths, not your weaknesses. And so then, of course, we'll learn specific strategies and compensatory strategies to manage some of these weaker areas. And the weaker areas come solely from things that your brain is born doing. That's really what it's about. So sometimes that helps people to not beat themselves up for it. There's nothing deficient about you. It's just that your brain gets bored easily, and so you have to find ways to structure yourself so that you can do the things that are boring as well. So in order to avoid being as distracted, you want to try to reduce as much external stimuli as you can that's extraneous, like clutter, noise, too much visual, chaos, your phone ringing, your email alerts, notices, popping on your screen, all kinds of stuff like that will draw you into distractions. It's like a dopamine pop. Like, oh, I got another email. Let me check it. All right. And so that's always more appealing than having to grind through whatever you're supposed to be doing. That's trying to work or pay bills or do whatever. So you want to try to set up in a space where you reduce those distractions, turn off your notifications, put your phone out of reach, things like that. And then you want to amplify the important things that you're supposed to be focusing on that will grab your attention. And then a couple of experts talk about the launching pad idea where you have like one place by your door to kind of pre-launch you for the next day. So like tomorrow I got to bring X, Y, and Z to school, to work, etc. I'm going to put it in a spot by the front door. Could be a table, or could be a basket, like that basket out there. We can throw something in it. So that when I walk out the door, I have everything right there and I can just grab it and go. Otherwise, you're running around. Where's my this? Where's my that? Where's my that? If I'm getting out the door. So working memory strategies. Doing it right away rather than I'll do it in a minute or late is so important. In my husband's credit, he's called himself highly compensated ADD person because he uses these strategies really effectively. And the second something happens, he takes care of it. Like if I turn on the light and the bulb glows, he will stop what he's doing and replace that light bulb right now. Rather than put it off and then forget it, it's being replaced. Sometimes you can actually use an item as its own reminder. Like I will put my watering can in the middle of my kitchen table so that when I come home from work, it's like, oh yeah, I got to water the plants when I get home. Or take a reminder with you. So, if you're in the middle of folding laundry, you want to get back to it, take a sock with you and go answer the door, what do we have to do, and then come back. That will remind you, oh yeah, I'm in the middle of doing lunch. Ask people to give you reminders in writing rather than verbally. Highlight important information as much as possible and put up notes or reminders. Now, if, sometimes people don't see them. So if it's the same reminder that's there all the time, you're not going to see it after a while. So you have to change the color or the location. Yeah.
When I was working with my first ADHD coach, one of the first things that I did was she knew that I liked to do artwork. So I took out these these watercolors and all these different papers and things, and I made this sign that said from and then to, and all of them were designed differently, and I put them at the threshold of each room that you walked in and out of, or its front door. And so the from was from this activity to this activity, fill in the blank, and from this room to this room, so that I would be mentally tracking, so that I wouldn't walk into a room and get distracted by doing other things. I would just go, okay, I'm going from my bedroom down to the kitchen, and I'm going from sleeping to preparing breakfast. You know, like I would just mentally rehearse like what the froms and twos were. And so these became like these little, they're still up in my house and I still use them. So, and then I have also these Pomodoro signs that are prompts to take 20 minutes to focus on a specific task. And then sometimes I write a list of specific tasks for a specific room, and I take that sign up, you know, for that room, you know, and it'll say, what are the things that I want to get done in this room in the next week or so? And then I pick something each day to, you know, get work from. So visual cues work really well.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes they need to be externalized. If they're in a book
Yeah.
or something I have to go look at,
Yeah.
you know,
Not so much.
it doesn't so much it doesn't help me.
Do others of you use strategies like that?
I have a card inside my car I have it in pink, and it's in a plastic sleeve, and I get it out when I know I have to get gas. And I stick it out, and I put it right there, so it's right there in my face, so that I'm not distracted and go other places. I know that I have to go get gas, and it reminds me. So
One of the things I was laughing about this thing about you put something out on the table to visually remind you of things that you have to do. The problem with that is that there's so many things that I have to do that I have things all over to remind me. So I'm trying to become more minimalist and just I've been praying. And there's something else I do. I pray. Like I have a God box. I pray and I put a specific thing. One of the I've taken as an executive function test, and I know that planning and prioritization is something that I'm weaker on. I'm great at organizations. I'm good at metacognition and meditation. I'm good at flexibility, but I'm too flexible almost. But that time blindness that we have and the learning to prioritize is a really big deal. It's something that I've been consciously trying to work on. And so I've been praying and turning it over and saying, okay, God, show me what the most important thing is, because I need clarity about what to do next and what to do next and what to do next, because usually I'll just go to the thing that I want to do. It's more fun to do as opposed to the things that might be harder to do. So anyway.
I think just getting in and out of the car is a challenge. That's a huge challenge. I mean, now that it's cold, you know, you've got your hat, you got your gloves, you got your cell phone, you got your car keys, you got all these things. As soon as I get in the house, I have a bulb right next to as I walk in. I put the car keys, the cell phone, and the wallet. Because I have been hours running through the house trying to find the cell phone, the car keys, turning the sofa upside down and all this and everything. And even tonight, I left out of the house to go to this thing, and I left the cell phone sitting there, but I had got hat, the gloves, the da. So just it drives me insane. It absolutely drives me insane. So the other day, I went to LA Fitness and I put, you know, that console between the chairs. I put everything in that little compartment, and then it locked. It wouldn't come back out. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say, there's sometimes ADD, they're beyond our control. But I took it to the gas station. They couldn't get it open. And then my partner just lifted and popped open. So now I know I put nothing in that console. It's just put it in the glove compartment. But I find this an absolute challenge. This is just, you know, to get in and out of the house with the cell phone, the car keys, now the hat and the gloves and and then getting out of the car, going back in the house. So I went to the thrift store buying boxes that would go in the compartments of the drawers to put where the hats would go in, where the gloves would go in, a box with different things and stuff. But trying to get more.
Now we have the container store here in Annapolis.
Yes.
So you know about the containers? Okay.
Her husband is unaccountably resistant.
Some important paper that is a serious important paper, and now you need this paper more than anything in this world, and you go in the organization with them, and you can't find that piece of paper. And you say, I know I found. I know I did. Like a birth certificate, or either it was your annuity, how much you get per month or something, it's needed somewhere or something, and you cannot find it. And it just, those are the terms that ADD just drives you absolutely insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Just the organization systems help that. Sometimes labeling, some people really, the organization people who work with a lot of ADHD people recommend labeling. The other thing I wanted to say was you talked about the shame that we often have or that's associated with this and everything. One of the things ADHD coaches did with me from the beginning was they had me celebrate my victory. Nothing was too small to celebrate because they say that for every the ADHD kid and people in general get negative messages more than they get positive messages because of things that they lose in the way that they do things and stuff. And so that we need to start to work not against it, but to change that, counteract it, and just learn to celebrate the little victories and stuff rather than beating ourselves up about what we don't do well. And they even recommend keeping like a little book of your victories and stuff. So because your working memory will not remember all the things that you did well. And then maybe you can go back and look at that and then figure out, oh, I could do this or I could do that. That will help, So having a little book of victories where you celebrate, I think that's what it was called. But anyway.
So planners and planning. That's kind of essential too, and to learn to set reminders and find a system that works for you. And everybody's different. Some like the electronic, some rather like paper and pencil. But finding one that you can consistently use and put everything in there, don't rely on your memory. Because too many people think, oh, I'll remember that. Where was my mind? Write it down, don't expect it. And then create schedules, from to-do lists and I like to teach people to do a daily planning session, because what happens is, sometimes we'll just start our next day and think, I know I got these things to get done. I don't know where to start and what to do first. And, oh, let me do this. This looks good. Oh, then I get an email from this person. Let me go respond to that. Oh, here's a message I got to take care of. Rather than have a plan. And, instead of time happening to you, you kind of learn how to manage it if you are a little bit more proactive in this process. So I teach people to do what's called a daily planning session. And what that consists of is that the day before, usually, before the end of your work day, however you define that, obviously, if you don't go to a job, sort of when you want to punch out for the day, if you will. You take the last 10 minutes and you look ahead at tomorrow's schedule. What do I have tomorrow? Do I have an appointment? Do I have a meeting? Do I have to be somewhere at a certain time? And you kind of remind yourself of what's coming up tomorrow so you're not surprised. Oh, yeah, I have that doctor's appointment at 10. I forgot about that, or whatever. So you remind yourself, you can set your appropriate alarm for the morning or whatever. But it also gives you a sense of how much unstructured time you have left for tomorrow. Because this is a daily planning schedule. So it's going to be creating a list of tasks that you can get done tomorrow. So if you have a lot of meetings and obligations, you're going to have a shorter list than if you have a lot of unstructured time available to get the things done. So that's why looking at tomorrow's calendar is really important to look at how much free time you might have to get. So the next step is to look at the rest of the week and the rest of the month to see what's coming up that I have to start chipping away at preparing for so it doesn't become an emergency. Rather than wait till the night before to say, oh my gosh, I got this big thing due tomorrow, right? So you've got to look ahead. And then ideally you keep a master task list, which is a place, it could be electronic or it could be in paper and pencil, where you have a running list of everything as you think of it that you need to get done. So that way you have one place to capture it. So you take a look at your master list and you take a subset of those items that are doable tomorrow and incorporate both the things that have to be done tomorrow that are critical, like something's due tomorrow, as well as the things that are important but not critical. So you're chipping away at things that are going to happen down the road, but you need to start doing parts of it now. And then you do a little prioritization system. So you look at the list you created for tomorrow, and you look at the most critical one gets an A. So I have to get this done tomorrow, or else it's going to be a consequence. And as you get better, there should be fewer of those, I think. So you put the A's next to the critical, B's next to the important. It's important for me to get this done tomorrow, and the C next to the optionals. And that way you have a prioritization system, and you work through your A's first, then your B's, and then your C's. So that way you have a built-in order, but you're not constricted to a rigid time. Like from 9 to 10, I'm going to do this task, because things happen that makes time sort of harder to partition like that, because something unexpected can happen, or you get an important phone call you have to deal with, whether that's going to take you off of your schedule. So it's a more flexible schedule. The first available unscheduled time you have between meetings or obligations the next day, you go through your A's and get those done. And then the next slot, you go to the next A or the B down to the C's. So that kind of gives you a rough sense of the order you're going to do it. The other thing I'd like to recommend is that you eat the frog first. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
But it's a time management system. And what they suggest you do is you do first the thing you would put off the most. The monkey on your back, if you will, the thing that's dreading doing. So you save it to the end of the day and you kind of avoid it. If you get that done first, then you feel so much better. It's like you feel accomplished and self-rewarding. And then the rest of the day is going to be easy. Okay.
The other thing that I forget to do, I have to put my food on my eating on my list, because I never used to schedule in my meals and stuff. And that's not good for somebody, especially with ADD or somebody that has an eating disorder or whatever. So, there are quite a few ADD people that with eating disorders or addiction, that it's very common. So, I do schedule time for my,
Your meals.
for my meals. I try to, I even try to put alarms in there, in my phone for when I do them. It's still something that was difficult, but I'm getting better.
And then this is something that I've learned about more recently, but the last year or so. Have you guys heard of something called FocusMate? So focusmate.com is a website. You can go to it and you get this creates structure. So people with ADHD need structure, accountability, and support to get them to do things that are not engaging or stimulating or interesting for them. Okay, so this is the stuff that you have to do that you don't really care about doing, but you need to get done. So what this site does is it creates virtual accountability, structure, and support. So instead of having to have a body double in there with you, which helps, this way you can create that opportunity virtually. So you get onto the site and you sign up for work chunks of time. So there are 50 minutes and there are 25 minutes. And so it's rounded out to an hour and to half an hour. So let's say you sign up for the hour session. At the appointed hour, you would get online and you get connected to another person who wants to get something done that same hour from anywhere in the country. And you spend the first couple of minutes telling each other what you're going to do with your 50-minute work session. And then you put them on mute in the background on your computer screen, and you go about doing whatever it is. And the whatever it is could be anything. It could be decluttering a closet. It could be exercise. It could be paying your taxes. It could be anything. All right. So you then have this structured, accountable sort of situation where it's like, okay, you're expecting yourself to do this. They're waiting for you to do it. And then at the end, you check back in and you tell them what you got done, and they say you what they got done. And you get the social support that way. And often they know to be careful of the person on the other end. So it had that social components. So that's really cool. And you can sign up for, as many as you want. And for people, so, if you want to structure your day to be more productive, and you don't have a meeting until later in the afternoon, you can do a 10 o'clock session, an 11 o'clock session, a 2 o'clock session. 3 productive hours the other day of getting stuff done. So that's really helpful for those of you that try it. And it's 3 times a week is free. And then, but it's only $5 a month to have unlimited sessions. So it's a great way to get you to structure yourself and have that structure, accountability, and support that's needed for this brain producing the number. So other things that are useful is an ADD coach, and we are going to have one here in January who was going to be here today. And tell you more about that. But it can be really helpful if you need more support. Professional organizers are really good if you're just overwhelmed with clutter and you can't really make good sense of your space and make it workable for you. They will come in your home or your office and arrange it in a way that's able to be friendly for you. Sometimes cleaning just takes too much executive functioning to get all of those different things done in your house. And so if you have the resources, hiring a cleaning service can be super helpful. Bartering services with friends, if you get a clutter buddy, if you take turns, I'll come and help you declutter this area in your house and you can help me declutter this area in my house another day. So focusing on that mention too. And then if you can automate things, that's also helpful, like automatic bill paying rather than having to write out checks in the mail and all that for each one. That's also a nightmare to run around their car with an envelope with a stamp on it. They still don't get it in the mail because we'll lose it or it falls under the floor now. And so you want to your goal is to simplify your life as much as possible, and you can teach your kids this too. So you want to model, not overcrowding your space or your obligations and commitments. So it's about really thinking about what's essential for good quality of life and what can I cut out? What's too much? What's extra? Learning how to say, is this mine to do? Rather than taking it on just because you might be able to get it done. Because that's how people get themselves in trouble. They take on too much. And then you want to try to, work in the areas that work better for your brain and delegate the things that don't. You need to do that within your own family. Like some people are naturally better at planning and making meals. Other people, and that could be male or female. I know plenty of families where the guy is better at that. And the woman just can't quite bother with that. And she does a different task, like the bill paying. So you try to delegate according to your strength. As much as possible, or you hire it out if you can. And it's hard to look at. You want to try to really focus on optimal constructive sources of stimulation. By that I mean instead of like scrolling mindlessly for hours on your cell phone or binge watching Netflix, those are probably not optimal ways to stimulate your brain. You want to try to find ones that are going to make more sense for you, like that don't get you kind of sucked into large chunks of time and don't really benefit that much, right? Talked about the importance of creating structure and accountability. Focus made is one way to help you with that, as well as a clutter buddy or coach or somebody like that. And then, of course, having friends and people in their life who get you and understand ADD and don't blame you if you're late and work with you, if you make a mistake and you forget something. And then there are professionals who can help you as well. So another interesting thing to focus on is to recognize that what you focus on is going to expand or get amplified. So if you focus on, thoughts going circling in your brain, you're going to get lost in your thoughts. Or if you focus on, oh my gosh, I got to do this, then you're going to start feeling bad and grumpy about it. So one way to focus on the positive and to shift something is to change how you talk to yourself. For example, instead of, I got to exercise today, I get to exercise today. It's like, it's an opportunity and it's a benefit and it's a privilege. And so try not to feel the burden of things as much as an opportunity or kind of a positive benefit of doing something. That can help your mindset. So shifting into gratitude, appreciation, and joyfulness are really powerful ways to shift your mood and your energy. So instead of grumbling and complaining or focusing on the things you can't do or it didn't work or frustrating you, try to focus on what you're grateful for at the end of the day. What worked well for you today. All the things that we take for granted that were great. Like we even have a car to get into. We can forget our those things. Or that we have a nice house, or that we have a partner, or that we have things in our life that we can genuinely be grateful for, appreciate, and bring more joy into your life. Like a lot of people, maybe are great at playing if they give themselves time to, but if they're too wrapped up in running around and taking care of everything else, they may not make enough time. So play is good.
I was raised by a master sergeant. He's a master sergeant in the Air Force, and he grew up on a farm. He got up really early in the morning. He worked. He just is really strong work ethics. But I can be his taskmaster, and it's just like no matter what I do, it's never enough. And so I was thinking about the importance of scheduling and play. Like when you look at something that's priority, then important, and then optional. I love to do creative things and I love to do artsy things. And the next phase of my life, I want to do more of that kind of stuff. And I haven't had time to do that kind of stuff because I've had this huge 4,800 square foot house with a millstone around my neck, and I want to, so I would have always put that playfulness or creativity project in the optional category and get pushed back and pushed back. And then there's never any joy in my life where I'm, and then I rebel, so I'm like, I'm trying to find a way to find more balance between.
So I would put that in the non-negotiable category.
Okay.
So
Non-negotiable.
non-negotiable. So there's some key non-negotiables. Sleep is the number one non-negotiable. I would say sleep, exercise, and good nutrition, followed by meditation, are the sort of non-negotiables. But an additional non-negotiable for self-care is to put fuel in your tank. So emotionally. So for some it's creativity. For some it's music. There are different ways in which like playing music. Yourself, or whatever it is, or being in nature. So those are the things that feed your soul, that feed you, and make you feel good about your life and yourself. And so you've got to also always incorporate some of that every day as much as possible, or at least a few times a week, so that we don't only focus on our obligations and our responsibilities and the work that's in front of us. We have to feed our soul too. We have to do things that are meaningful to us. Or it could be reading, it could be anything that kind of serves that purpose.
Would you say the non-negotiable again is sleep?
Sleep is the number one. Then I would say exercise and nutrition, and then meditation. Those are the 4 pillars that I talk about. But the 5th one is these other activities that feed your soul. Yeah.
I just want to say that I know 4 to 5 other guys my age. And one thing we're not putting in here that most people with ADD, I found out it's like a left and a right hand go together. They have depression or they have anxiety. So when you're talking about all these different things, you're also fighting depression, you're fighting anxiety, and you're somewhere in between there. But the depression and the anxiety or something, you're fighting it. It's a fight, and everyone I've known that has ADD has those 2 things. It's like their left and the right hand or something. I haven't known a person yet that doesn't have depression and anxiety with ADD.
Well, as I did talk about earlier, maybe before you got here, but a lot of people have what's called secondary depression and anxiety. So it's secondary to untreated ADD. And if your ADD is not well managed, it's going to become very stressful. And then you're going to feel the anxiety of that. And then sometimes that will lead to kind of hopelessness and helplessness, which is the depression piece. So that's one kind of anxiety and depression triad. You can also have pre-existing conditions that you inherit, where you also have bipolar depression and an anxiety disorder in addition to ADHD. And those need to be treated as well, of course.
It doesn't mean that we're not smart and that we're not doing things, but most people do have, even a girl I know, she's very intelligent. She has depression and anxiety with ADD. So when you're talking about all these different things that you're balancing all this stuff, remember you're also fighting and balancing.
Right, but all 4 of those pillars will also treat depression and anxiety. Meditation treats depression, anxiety. Exercise treats it. Sleep,
and I do.
And eating. All of those are equally good for depression. So this is part of my sort of passion with helping women in midlife who come to me feeling bad about themselves. But it's so much important to see that you men as well are more than your ADHD, and so much greater than the mistakes you make or the brain fog you feel or forgetfulness or disorganization. And so it's so important to kind of honor your own gifts and your own contributions and your own sort of passions and purpose, and not just get stuck in all of the mistakes or the forgetfulness that you do struggle with, of course, but that's not who you are and doesn't apply. So many of these people with this brain are also highly sensitive, creative, and intuitive, and those can be gifts. And also, you get easily bombarded by the environment and the world around you, not the demand in it. So the self-care is so important to kind of keep you in that calm, grounded, centered place. So that's why those 4 pillars are so important to remember and to prioritize. And we're prioritizing you. And it's really about creating daily practices that allow you to do that. So that it's not like at the end of the day, you might, if you're lucky, get a few minutes to do something for yourself. That's ask backwards. Okay, I'm trying to say you have to come first. So that you put first your non-negotiables in your calendar and everything will work. Your kids and your husband or your spouse, your wife, partner. You've got to put yourself first. It's just essential, and it's not selfish. It's smart. So we want to make sure you're not giving up your power and your purpose and losing sight of your passion because you're so busy running around taking care of everything you got to take care of, and taking on too much and putting yourself last. So again, the antidote is putting yourself first. Those pillars of self-care are critical, and you got to recharge your own battery and not just keep giving to the point of depletion and such.
Something, and Gary was telling me that this was just an epiphany for me, is that you don't have unlimited emotional resources, and that it's very important to look for reciprocity in relationships with people. You just don't keep giving and giving and giving to takers in your life. You need to give to people who also see you and honor you and give back. And so she said to look for reciprocity in relationships. That's very important for building up your emotional resources, because you have a finite amount of them sometimes and in any given day. So she's just talked about the importance of that, which I found that really helpful.
And then I just want to share a few resources. So here's a fairly new guide for women to embrace their neurodiversity and break through their barriers. And it's kind of a workbook. So it's kind of a cool new approach for women with ADHD. There's a couple of others that are really helpful. The 80 Friendly Ways to Organize Your Life has great strategies from our local Dr. Kathleen Nadeau. And they're very specific strategies, like how do you sort mail and deal with mail. Some people just have mail piling up on their counter and it's a big round. So there's like a chapter on that. And there's like a chapter on dealing with meal planning and some of the practical everyday things that we have to take care of. And she has got really good strategies. And then Dr. Tuckman has a book called Understand Your Brain, Get More Done, and that's a workbook. And so it's kind of a way for you to work with these different things with specific strategies of how do I deal with distractibility, how do I deal with impulsivity, and there's specific behavioral strategies for each of them. He also has great podcasts and webinars on this site. And just a few other resources. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Fly Lady. She's been around for a long time, but she has kind of a cool listserv that you can join, and she gives you all kinds of useful and fun and practical tips. Have you been following her, Carole?
I heard of Fly Lady some time ago, and there were a lot of good tips on there.
Yeah.
Even just drinking water throughout the day. That was the one reason I was doing it.
All right. So otherwise, we also have some support groups available for those that want to stay. How many of you would like to stay for an adult support group? How many would like to stay for parent support? I run the parent support group, so I will switch hats in a couple of minutes and we'll start. In the meantime, if you want to grab a water or tea or snacks,